All right, so let's continue on here with Chapter 6, Part 3 on routing methods, liquidity, and dark pools. So as you know, there are three basic types of orders that you can send to buy or sell shares. You've got market orders, you have limit orders, and you have stop orders. Now, 99%, I'd in fact probably say 100% of all my trades will be what we would call a marketable limit order, which is, it's a limit order, so I'm putting a limit on how much I'm willing to pay. So on this stock here, a limit could be 1064. And if I click the buy button right now, I will fill instantly, just like that, at the current best price. With no slippage, of course, in a simulator. With a real money platform, you may see some slippage on a bigger order. And I'm gonna sell here, and just like that, I'm out at the bid price, a marketable limit order. It's virtually a market order, except that I am putting a limit on it. So the limit on that hotkey was actually, I believe, 10 cents below the current price on the bid, and on the buy side, I was a few cents above the ask. So these are our three main type of orders. Again, most of us won't be using market orders unless you're with a firm like TD Ameritrade, where the limit order functionality isn't very good, and then you just feel forced to use them. But most of us won't. John L10, who's a member of the 100K Club and has done really well, been a great trader, he uses market orders with TD Ameritrade. It's just the fastest way for him to use the platform. He's been using it for forever. He likes it. So you can do it, but you certainly have to be careful. And I think, to be honest, sometimes his strategy becomes a little bit dictated by the platform he's using, because he can't trade some of these really big, high-flying, moving stocks, because with market orders, you're putting too much risk out. But again, it works for him, and so if it works, no reason to change that. But limit orders, in contrast, put the limit on the price, the most you're willing to pay to buy, or the least you're willing to take to sell. So if I buy this right here at 10:05, let's say I'm in at 10:05, and then I say I want to sell it, but I won't take anything less than 10:05. Well, now my order's just sitting there while the stock is dropping. So usually I would say, if I really want to get out of it, I better put that order down a little bit below the current price, so my order will execute immediately. And just like that, it's gone. And of course, stop orders are triggered when a stock crosses a certain price. You typically won't see me use these. I explained them pretty well in the starter class, and I don't think there's anything else to add to that. Now, when it comes to order routing methods, we obviously think of the market as an island, and on this island, all the buyers and sellers meet to exchange shares. This is where everyone goes to buy and sell, except for some of the institutions that do it on the side. But there are dozens of bridges to get to this island. Hey! You go outside. Go outside, girl. Get out there. Out, out, out. You tell me. Report back to me. So there's dozens of bridges to get to the island. And when you send your order from your broker, they will automatically choose typically which bridge they think is the fastest using a smart routing system. A smart routing system. Now what we know is that, in fact, a lot of the brokers that offer smart routing actually, it's free routing to you, but they use that data. Sometimes they sell that data to institutional traders or hedge funds, so they can see what retail traders are doing. Sometimes the way they sell that actual order flow, the volume of the shares, to a specific market maker that gives them a rebate on it. So it may not be what's really smart for you. I mean, it's what you get, though, for a free commission broker typically. It's a give and take, and that might be fine for some people, but you might not also be happy with it. Alternatively, you can choose exactly which market maker you want to send your orders to. And so that's, of course, the way I route my orders. And so from Lightspeed, I can click right here, and I can choose which route to use. Or as I showed you here, we can click the different routes, and it'll change it right down here. So that's me specifically saying, there's a seller at ARCA, I'm going to buy at ARCA. There's one at EDGX, I'm going to buy at EDGX. There's one at NASDAQ, I'm going to buy at NASDAQ. Now, you don't necessarily have to change it. For those trading a simulator, your route obviously makes zero difference whatsoever. It's simulated trading. But when we set up our hotkeys, and when we set up kind of our basic how it loads each morning, we're going to want to, I think, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to want to choose a specific route. And I just choose NASDAQ because it's the route that has the most volume. And because it has the most volume, it's the highest likely that I'll be able to get a match on my order very quickly, very, very fast. But as you know, many brokers out there that are kind of, just for retail traders, they're not really for day traders. They won't even give you the option to do smart routing. And that could be a real problem. What we also know is that smart routing is not free. So let me just pull up this Lightspeed routing fees. So this is the Lightspeed website. Now, take this with a grain of salt because the day I'm showing this to you today, it's snowing outside. So, 6 months from now, some of the prices may be different, some of the routes may be different. But these are what they have. And they have, so LSPT, LSPD Dark Assault, ARCA OTCBB, so that's for OTC stocks. You can see all of them here. And there's a price for adding liquidity, and there's a price for taking liquidity. In parentheses is obviously you pay, and this is actually you get paid. So on EdgeX, you get paid a 1/16 of a penny, and you pay 3/10 of a penny. On NASDAQ, where's NASDAQ? NASDAQ, you get 2/10 of a penny, and you pay 3/10 of a penny, depending on whether you're adding or removing liquidity. That's kind of interesting. So we'll talk about that in a second. Now, with a limit order, I always use an offset. I have to use an offset because generally I'm buying enough shares that if there's only 300 shares for sale, I'm not going to fill the full order here. So I always use a little bit of an offset, which makes it a marketable limit order. If an order executes instantaneously like that, it's considered marketable. So even though technically you had a limit on it, it's a marketable limit order. So on the sell side, marketable because I hit the bid and it was gone instantly. Now occasionally, kind of each day when I come in, I may, so like today for instance, I may come in, check my hotkeys and say, you know what, this is actually 20 cents above the ask. I actually changed that from about 5 cents to 20 to accommodate last week when we were trading GameStop at $200-300 a share. So sometimes, kind of like a skier, we'll have to use different wax for different ski conditions. Sometimes I have to modify my hotkeys to accommodate the stock I'm trading. And I actually noticed that my hotkey to sell on the bid, let's see, where is it? Sell BATS bid. This was not enough. A 5-cent offset was not enough on some of my trades yesterday. I was not getting filled. So I might set that to 15 cents today just to give me a little bit more room. And so I'll say done on that. I'll do, let's see, this is ask. Let's do, let's see, full on, half on bid. I'll do 15 on that. Because if I want to get out, I want to get out, right? So, and I'll maybe just do 10 on that one. So these are all limit orders, but these have offsets. Now we'll get into that in more detail when we talk about hotkeys. And I think I've already talked enough about smart routing here that you understand why I'm not a fan of it. Even Lightspeed has smart routing, and Lightspeed smart routing is cheaper. The fee on LSPT, which is their smart route, is half the price of NASDAQ. And if you look at my commissions are split between actual, let's see, detailed, between commissions, which is at my per trade rate, and ECN fees. The ECN fees are this right here. So this month already, we're talking about $21,000 in ECN fees. That's a lot of ECN fees. I mean, it is. And, I look back at, go back to the beginning of, go back to December, whatever. I go back a little bit of a stretch here and let's see, filter that. We're at $166,000 in ECN fees. So if I was always routing with LSPT, I would have saved half of that. However, there have been a few times where I've sent an order through LSPT and it just hangs. I should be getting filled and nothing's happening. And now I've missed the opportunity, and that only has to happen to me a couple times for me to say, you know what, I'd rather just pay the extra money. Lightspeed also offers something called a super smart order. Now, a super smart order is pretty cool. What it does is it actually fans your order out to 4 different ECNs at the same time. So some ECNs, some market makers, when they see orders coming in, we know that they have algos that kind of will try to take advantage of retail traders. So if you're trying to buy like 50,000 shares, you might see huge slippage as the algos are kind of trying to move out of the way to make the most of your order. So if you're doing really big orders, fanning your orders out, either splitting them out or individually just sending them in 4 orders, or sending them at the same time to 4 different market makers can help you get a better fill. So this is something that they offer for more of the institutional traders, but the problem is you're going to pay a commission now on each one of those routes because it's splitting your order into 4. So you wouldn't want to do it like my 2,500 share order. I would only want to do it on like a 10,000 or maybe 15, 20,000 share order. And I actually don't do it at all. I just don't feel like it's just not really the way I trade. But I thought I'd share it with you because it's kind of cool. But I don't think probably any of you guys will use it. But hey, maybe if you get to a point of trading with 15, 20,000 shares, you will start to use it. Now, the dark pools of liquidity. We talked about Anthony at the hedge fund. And so that's when, someone calls it, hey, Anthony, I'm looking for 50,000 shares of CHCI. And he says, yeah, we've got 50,000 shares of CHCI. We've got it at $10. And so this is an institution that has shares, but those shares are not displaying on the level 2. They're there, but they're not really there. And so there's different dark pools. There's obviously institutional traders that are just simply holding positions that may be for sale to another institution, but are not really for sale. Now, that obviously is not going to show up on the level 2 because it's not an order. They're not actively trying to sell it, but that's different. But in the case of dark pools, the institutions will still route their orders. And so typical brokers will not necessarily search the entire market for a match to your order. They will search a more limited network of ECNs and market makers to match your order, which typically is fine. But sometimes there will be a situation where one of the institutional routes, the ECNs that are really only used by institutional traders, will actually have shares at the price that you wanted. And so, you might have ended up actually paying a higher price because your broker didn't search for that piece of liquidity. Now, if I route just through a typical ARCA, NASDAQ, NYSE BATS, they're not going to do any dark pool. They're not going to try to hit the dark pools either. Lightspeed actually has made a custom ECN called the Dark Assault, LSPD, that does dark pool, that searches for dark pool liquidity. And there may be instances where that will help you. I've tried it a couple times, and I generally found that the time it takes me to click here and then scroll down, that I didn't actually find that it was super helpful. It also is a little slower because they're pinging the different market makers and ECNs. So I personally didn't really find that it was super helpful for me, but you will hear sometimes people talk about dark pools of liquidity, and they are out there, but to the extent that it's really going to make or break your trading, it's not, and certainly not with small size. Perhaps with bigger size down the road, but not really. So I wouldn't worry about too much. But again, it's important for me to share this with you just so you understand it. So, as you know, my process for preparing an order, generally, if I know I want to buy a stock like CHCI, I put the order right in my order entry window at 1025. If 1025 is the trigger based on a chart, I'll just set my limit order to there. Now I could press the buy button right now and get filled at the current price. But if it goes above 1025, obviously I won't fill above that price. So I put my share size, my price, and then I can select the route, or I just leave it by default at NASDAQ. It's a limit order to buy. It's a hidden order by default, and that doesn't really matter on the buy side when it's a marketable order because it just goes through instantaneously. That really is only helpful when we're selling and we don't want to show our hands to the market. Both in Lightspeed and also in Sterling, you can set up your order entry in pretty much the same way. It's very, very similar. Sterling kind of has better use of space than Lightspeed, but it's basically the same process. Now, when I've been trading in TD Ameritrade, the workflow is very different. I have some live trading archives of trading in TD Ameritrade if you are interested in watching them. But TD Ameritrade is not as intuitive a platform and actually doesn't really have this type of setup where you can prepare 3 or 4 order entry windows. It's just not set up that way, at least not right now. So this is usually how I'm buying. Usually my entry is, I'm looking at the stock, I'm thinking about it, and I have time to enter my orders like this. So the hotkey to buy, shift 1 and shift 2 for me, it's not really that necessary. Now, I do use it when I'm already in a stock and it's starting to move higher. I'll use that quick hotkey to add, but sometimes I think that it is almost, it encourages that impulsivity to aggressively add when it's not always the right move. So I could actually probably do just fine without hotkeys to buy, but I still have them. Now, so while my workflow for entering an order is typically through the order entry window. That way I can, pre-market, sort of prepare with my 4 order entry windows. I have one here, and everything here. I can usually have 4 stocks that are basically prepared and ready to go. And then when I'm selling, 100%, I would say 99% of my sell orders are done with hotkeys. Hotkeys to sell at the ask or hotkeys to sell at the bid. Because when I'm in a position, I don't have time to be typing. I don't have time to be with my mouse coming over here. Because usually when I'm in a trade, my mouse is up here looking at the high and the low of the last candle. And my eye is here on the level 2. And I don't have time to be typing stuff. So I need to be able to exit with hotkeys. we'll talk about the hotkeys a little bit more. And then if I place an order and it doesn't fill immediately, I'll usually cancel it. In the case of something like this, if I place an order to buy it at 25 and then it jumps over me, well, my order is still sitting there. So do I want to get filled as it comes back down? Probably not, because then it's dropping. So in this point, it's now at 46. I just better cancel the order. Now I can always get in at the $0.50. I could find a new entry, but I don't want to chase a trade that I missed, and I don't want to get filled as it comes back down. And that's important because sometimes traders, they'll put out a whole bunch of orders like this. They'll walk away. They don't realize it. They're still open. So you want to make sure you don't have any open orders when you get up and walk away from your computer, because that can be a real surprise. And then just to touch on this briefly, when I'm scaling out of trades, whether it's a winner or a loser, I always try to sell my shares on the ask to get the best price. In terms of, this is relevant from an adding liquidity standpoint. Anytime I buy on the ask, I'm taking liquidity from the market, which let me describe that in just one second. So by selling on the ask, it forces a buyer to come to you, and therefore it increases the strength of momentum because all you'll continue to see is green on the tape, right? We know that every transaction here, there's a buyer and a seller, but the color is based on what price it occurs at. So if I'm selling on the ask, well, then someone's buying my shares. That transaction, when it goes through, is going to be green. So that continues to support my existing position, which is that I'm long the stock and I want to continue to see it go up. So if I sell on the bid, I'm kind of feeding weakness. I'm hitting the bid, and sometimes I'll call that feeding the bears, and I don't want to feed the bears. So I don't want to feed the bears. If they're short, I want to force them to cover, on the ask. And I don't want to give them the indication that there's weakness, because if I'm still holding a position, that's going to hurt the position I'm still holding. Now, having said that, if I have to hit the bid, I'll hit the bid. If the stock is tanking and I have to hit the bid, I'll hit the bid. I'll show you in trade management and in a lot of the live trading archives more of these nuances, but this is important from the perspective of two things. Number one, hiding shares. So as I said, you can choose to hide your shares. So if I'm selling, I could sell 50,000 shares here at 35. If I put a sell order, just for instance, at 21 or whatever, and I sold and it's hidden, what you'd end up seeing when it comes up to 21 or whatever it is, you'd see green orders going through, but the price isn't breaking, and that tells you it's a hidden seller. And so your eye will learn to spot those on the level 2, and certainly when you spot them, you're going to think, okay, someone is selling. They're smart enough to hide their shares. So is this a short seller, trying to fill a short position? Is it someone trying to unwind a long position? I don't know necessarily, and you don't know initially, but it's a reason to be a little bit cautious. Some brokers will charge you to hide shares on a per share basis. Others have no charge. There's no charge at Lightspeed to hide your shares. They don't care. It's just hide it or don't hide it. It's up to you. Some brokers require that you show a minimum of 10% of your size, which is where you get that iceberg order, because you see just the 5,000, but not the 45,000 underneath it. Lightspeed doesn't require you to show it anything. You can just have your orders hidden completely. So you might say, well, gosh, Ross, if so many people can hide orders, does that not defeat what you learned from level 2? And it doesn't, because you still see the tape, you still see the flow. And when you see those patterns, the flow on the level 2, the bursts of green, and they're corresponding to a clear chart pattern, then that gives me what I need to feel confident in the trade. Sure, there could be some hidden sellers. There'll always be some hidden sellers, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm still able, number one, usually to visualize them, and number two, to see the other signs of strength that override that. Someone's selling 50,000 shares when a stock has 100 million. It's not a big deal. It's really not. So orders will fill very quickly. Now, when it comes to adding and removing liquidity to the market means you're adding shares that can be bought or sold. And this would be anything that's not immediately marketable. So let me show you an example. Well, let me read it and then I'll show you an example. So by adding liquidity to the market, many market makers will give you an ECN rebate right here. That's the rebate. They give you money for adding liquidity. They want you to add liquidity. Adding liquidity means there's going to be more buyers on the bid or more sellers above the ask. When you remove liquidity, you may get charged an ECN fee, which is the case right here. You get a credit for adding and a fee for removing, except with Lightspeed where you get a fee for both. Some do charge you a fee for both. At the end of the day, though, the rebate and the fee, when I'm looking at my, over the last 6 weeks, $1.3 million in profit, the last 8 weeks. Yeah, so I've got $160,000 in ECN fees. I'm not saying that that's, it's 10%, but at the same time, I don't want to step over dollars to pick up pennies, right? I mean, let's be realistic. This has got to be my focus. The process around this, the nuance of, saving a couple dollars here and there. And I know it adds up, but still percentage-wise, it's a relatively small amount of money. So I focus on the strategy first and foremost. Now, as an example of adding liquidity to the market means you're improving market liquidity by adding shares. This would be considered any order that's not immediately marketable. When you add liquidity, you can get paid an ECN rebate at the rate at ARCA of 0.2 of a penny. 10,000 shares would be 20 bucks. Now, 10,000 share trade with 50-cent profit is $5,000. So making the extra 20 is irrelevant. What's more important is that I actually get filled on my exit with $5,000 of profit. So let's put out a order right there. That order is adding liquidity to the market. I now have, not in the simulator, of course, but in practice with real money, that would be adding liquidity to the market. I have the order out there, and so now you've added an order to the book of the level 2. So anyone that's adding orders to it, you're adding liquidity. If I put an order on the ask way up here to sell, I'm adding liquidity up at the top. Those are adding liquidity. So now there's an order. Now, the hitch is that if you're hiding your shares, you don't get the rebate. You only get the rebate if you're displaying your shares. So what I actually do for one of my hotkeys, I actually have a hotkey where I'll sell a quarter of my position at the ask, and I don't hide it. It's a quarter of my position. What do I care? I don't hide it, and I actually put it 1 cent above the ask. That way, because sometimes if you put an order at the ask, but the second you put it, the ask moves up, you'd be between the spread. Between the spread could be considered adding liquidity, but not if your order executes immediately. So by going 1 cent above the spread on a hotkey to sell a quarter of my position, I'm definitely adding liquidity on that trade, and I'll collect a small rebate. You know, again, if I do that for, you know, a good enough portion of my sell orders and it makes really no difference because I'm only scaling out a quarter of the position, then I can collect a little bit of a rebate. So that's a small thing that I can do, and I'll talk about it more in the hotkeys, to get a little bit of a rebate. But it doesn't make a huge difference, to be honest. And some brokers, you have to also check with them to make sure they even give you ECN rebates. Most big brokers like E-Trade and Ameritrade, I'm not sure that they even do. So removing liquidity is when you take liquidity from the market. So that is removing liquidity. That's removing liquidity. Removing liquidity. So I'm taking from the market. But again, I'm always going to be removing liquidity when I'm buying on the ask. I want to get filled instantaneously. So that's just the way, that's fine. It's not like it's a penalty. You just pay the cost for it. It's no big deal. All right, so that is the end of chapter 6, part 3. So from here, we will continue on. I'm gonna take a little bit of a break, and then we'll continue on with chapter 6, part 4. All right, everyone, so we're gonna continue on here with chapter 6, part 4 on hotkeys. Now we've touched on hotkeys and hot buttons a little bit in the starter course, so you understand, you should understand at this point that they exist, essentially what they are in their basic form. But let's get into breaking them down a little bit more with the settings that I use. So, and we're going to be adding, sort of layering on to some of the things we've already discussed in this chapter about adding and removing liquidity, dark pool routing, and so on and so forth. So let's begin with, I'll begin with light speed here. So I'm going to drag this up here like this. That should be fine right there. Yep, you guys can see that okay. All right, so this is the Lightspeed platform. We'll go through Lightspeed, we'll look at Sterling, and then we'll look at TD Ameritrade. Those are sort of the three most common. Again, TD Ameritrade is not very intuitive, but their order execution is halfway decent. It's not as good as Lightspeed, but it's good enough, and a lot of people use them. So I'll break it down for you. All right, but first let's get into the hotkey settings for Lightspeed. So to access your settings, you can go right here and click on this widget, and then you have to go to custom orders. This is not very intuitive, I'll tell you that. And these are the ones that I've already built for myself. But you can create a new one right here. You can go to custom. Now you could do a different one for a super smart order or for a route, but we'll just do, well, I'll just click on one. So this is the one that I have right now for buy 1,000 shares. So we'll double click on that. The name of it is buy 1,000 shares. That's pretty intuitive. The market is which market I'm routing it to. So I could change this to ARCA. I could change it to LSPT if I want to save a little bit of money with their smart route. I could change it to LSPD if I want to use their dark route. Or I could change it to, you know, I mean, I could change it to whatever I want. If I leave it at primary market, I'm actually not 100% sure I'm not 100% sure how that routes the order, if I'm going to be honest. So, and I've never done it that way, so we'll just go back to this. NSDQ, NASDAQ. This is a buy order. So it's a buy order. You can either be buy or sell. It's the only two options. You choose your route. You choose the instruction, so it's a limit order. You can tell it to not reroute your order. So here's one of the things. If you're trying to add liquidity, if the ECN is forced to reroute your order, then sometimes you don't get the credit for adding liquidity. So if you really want to be adding liquidity, you could go on no route. So don't reroute the order. And basically, because if you send it to EdgeX and then they send it to NASDAQ, NASDAQ charges EdgeX, so then they charge you. So you don't get the rebate. That's just, I don't know, the way it is. So you could do that, but generally speaking, we don't want to be stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. So trying to, and Carlos says, primary market sends it to the exchange you see on the level 2 displaying the quote. The exchange. So NYSE or NASDAQ, the primary market, that I guess would make sense. So thanks for that. But anyways, I don't think that it's a good idea to be trying to design your hotkeys specifically for saving on ECN fees or whatever. So we're going to just leave this as a limit order. It's a visible order, which doesn't make any difference since it's a marketable order. A marketable order will execute instantaneously. So whether it's visible or hidden makes no difference, really. The only area that it would make a difference, I could say, is that if you did, this is 20 cents through the ask. So through means up above it in that direction. So if I did 0.02, for instance, the only problem is that it's possible, you know, on a stock like this, I could press Shift 1 and my order won't execute because it jumps too fast. And if that happens, then my order would be sitting on the bid. So then the question is, the order that is now sitting on the bid, do we want that to be hidden or visible? I think it's fine that it's visible. It doesn't really make a difference, but you could choose either way you want. We choose quantity, and I always put the same right in these two. And then once you're done, you can either click done and close it, or you can click the button map key now, which brings you over to the keyboard tab. So the keyboard tab, which again is not very intuitive, I'll admit. These are all the keys on your keyboard that you could potentially add a script to. So you press the number 1, and now under the key number 1, there's a S1 and a C1. S is for shift, C is for control. So they don't let you do Alt 1. Just Shift 1 or Control 1. So I set my hotkey, I click on the hotkey here and I clicked map right there. And just like that, boom, my hotkey is on Shift 1. And then I have the same type of hotkey except for 2,000 shares, and I put that at 2, Shift 2. So that's how we build our keys, and then we map them to the actual keys. And again, you could choose whatever keys are convenient for you. These are just the ones that I've chosen that are logical. Now, these are the two hotkeys that I have for kind of basically jumping in a stock that's squeezing up. Shift 1, Shift 1, Shift 2, etc. But as I said, primarily, I'm using hotkeys for selling. So let's talk about the two type of sell orders. We have selling at the bid and selling at the ask. Now, if I'm selling at the ask, this is the hotkey. It actually says sell bats ask. They changed something here. If I click on this, it's going to take away that line and the spaces. So let's see. Actually, see there it goes. So even though I'm not routing to bats anymore, I decided that I didn't want to change the name because I like the way it shows 1 of 1. So anyways, this is, oh, sorry. So this one, well, actually, I think it just, well, I won't save my layout. So anyways, it's down here. So this is sell the full position on the ask. So sell full position on the ask. Sell order, NASDAQ, limit. It's hidden. Through the ask is 0. Now, I could go, if I want to go, in this case, above the ask, if I wanted to put like a profit target and put my order 10 cents above the ask, I would actually have to do negative 0.10. That would put the order 10 cents above the ask. If I want to shave the ask and go just under it, I could go 0.01 and be 1 cent underneath the ask. So in the instance where we have a big seller at 250, then we could go ahead and shave the ask by 1 cent, and I'll be at 249 or 349, whatever I just said. But for right now, we'll just put it at 0. So this will be right at the ask price. Now the order size here, we can choose. You could choose share size if you want, 1,200 shares or whatever. But I don't like to do that because then I ultimately end up with an odd position and how do I sell that odd position? So I use full position, quarter position, half position, 3/4 position. So this is for my full position. And for quantity here, I just leave it at tiers 1. So this is kind of odd because if I press this hotkey but I don't have a position to close, and I put 1,000 shares in here, it's actually going to put a sell order out for 1,000 shares. So I just put it at tier 1, which I believe is 100 shares. So, you know, that's not the end of the world if I accidentally go short 100 shares. It's kind of a weird thing that they have there. Now, I turn the pop-up confirmations off. So as soon as I send these orders, they're just going to send right to the market. And then I click done. So I have 3 hotkeys for selling on the ask. I have sell full size. I have sell half size. Everything's the same except the position is half size. And then I have sell quarter size. Now, something that I mentioned in the last class is that sometimes when I'm selling quarter size, I leave this visible because if it's a hidden order, remember, I don't collect an ECN rebate for it. But if it's a visible order, then I will collect the ECN rebate. And if I go 0.01 and put 1 cent above the ask, then I'm pretty much guaranteed that I'll be collecting the ECN rebate. So let's go ahead and test this out. Here I'm going to press on ZVZZT, NASDAQ test stock. And let's just switch to my other account. That way I don't mess up the way my P&L looks. All right, so long here. Now I'm going to press my hotkey right there. And notice my order is at 10.03. It's 1 cent above the ask. So that's an order where I am adding liquidity to the market. I would pick up an ECN rebate, most likely. My order, I don't think it would be rerouted. It shouldn't be rerouted. There's no reason for it to get rerouted. Usually they reroute your orders when you're sending them at the market price, like a marketable limit order, because the ECN has an obligation to give you the best price. And if they don't have the best price, they'll reroute to the ECN that does. But if you're going outside the market, you know, like this, you're adding liquidity, you shouldn't have an issue of rerouting. So in a situation like this, I should get actually a small ECN rebate for adding that liquidity. Now, again, in this case, it doesn't really, for me, if I'm just selling a quarter of my position, I'm unwinding it. It doesn't make a big difference to put it 1 cent above the ask, usually. And it doesn't really make a difference with just a quarter position to make it visible, usually, because it's just not a big deal. So in that case, I get to, you know, collect a little bit of a rebate. Now, if I sell a little bit there and then a few minutes later I sell a little bit more on the ask, you know, then next thing you know, I've sold my whole position on the ask in quarters, basically, and I got an ECN rebate for the exit. I paid an ECN fee for, so Laura, yeah, this order for selling just the quarter is, no, that's the bid. The order that I had for selling quarter at the ask was visible. For full size and for half size, I did have them set at hidden. Because if I have full size or half size and I'm putting it on the ask, then if I have large size, I'd rather have that a hidden order. But for quarter size, just scaling out small pieces, I don't really mind it being visible. Again, though, this isn't a big deal either way. You're talking about on 10,000 shares saving 20 bucks. So it's not really, it's not really a huge deal either way. If you don't want to worry about the rebate, then just leave it as a hidden order. And you could still put it above the ask if you want, but you don't have to. You could just put it right at the ask and just leave it like that. All right, so we'll close that. And now, so I have those 3 orders for selling on the ask. Now I have 3 orders for selling on the bid. Selling full position on the bid, 15 cents below the bid. So it's a sell order, NASDAQ, limit, hidden, through the bid, 15 cents below the bid. That gives me an offset to allow for slippage below the bid price. It's a closeout of the full position. And the tiers, I guess I have it set at a quarter if I don't have a position to close. So again, this is just a weird thing that they have. I guess a quarter of 1 tier would be 25 shares. We'll test that out in a second. We'll test it out in a second. So that right there, it's below the bid, and that's my sell order. So now I map that key, and I just chose, not to give you like, kind of overwhelm you, but just, I'll give you a zoom in here. I'll just sort of move this. So let me give you a zoom in of my keyboard. Let's see, I think I can reach this. Yeah. All right, so here's my little keyboard. So we'll go split screen for you. So I actually use this right here for main screen, split screen, full screen. I've heard some people try to use these types of pads for trading. I'm not sure that they're compatible with all brokers. I have never tried to use it. And also, when I travel, I just don't want another thing that I have to bring with me. Or when I'm trading on my laptop down in the living room, I don't want to, I don't have this with me. So everything I need to trade is right here. So, so the way I set up my keys, Shift 1 and 2. So Shift 1 and Shift 2, that's buy and buy, right? 1,000 shares, 2,000 shares. Then when I'm ready to sell, my pinky goes down to the control button. And Control Z is sell the full position on the bid. Control X is to sell half. Control C is to sell a quarter. Now, I keep my pinky here and my hands on these three buttons, but if I'm wanting to sell on the ask, then I use the other hand, which is pressing the K, L, and semicolon button. Now, initially, I set this up just with the L to sell on the ask to add liquidity. That's why I did that. I used the L because it reminded me that I'm adding liquidity when I'm selling on the ask. But then I realized that, I also wanted a key for selling the full position on the ask and selling a quarter. So then I made one on either side of it. So it's kind of funny, but it works well enough for me. So these ones press the K, L, and semicolon. And on the other side, this hand is still pressing the control button. And this hand is also ready to quickly press Control Q to cancel all open orders and Z. So you can see right now, so let's say let me just screw on this camera holder here so I can hold the camera. Hang on, I'll get this on 1 second. I just have to screw it in tight. All right, that's good. Okay, so we're gonna just pop this camera kind of like right here. Lighting's, I guess, not super bright, but that works. It works well enough. It's not perfect, but that's okay. All right, so so this is basically how I'm sitting here, kind of like the. It's kind of funny. So I'm sitting here with this hand right here. All right, so Shift 1. So you can see on the split screen, we've got ZVZZT. All right, so I'm going to press Shift 1, and you can see. Oh, I got to cancel out of this. Okay, so let's close this. So Shift 1 is to buy 1,000 shares. So you can see the share size is going up to 4,000, 5,000. Shift 2 buys 2,000 shares. Now I'm at 7,000, 9,000. That brings me up to 10. So when I'm trading, I'll put this like that. So I press the control button with my left hand, and with my right hand, I press the semicolon button, which puts the order there at 10:02. Maybe I put another order at, the ask of half. So I've got an order for quarter. Oops, sorry. Order for quarter, half, and then full size. Now, it's changing my order because it's not letting me, it's saying, well, wait a second, you can't sell more shares than you have because they're not actually letting me short this. Even though it says it's easy to borrow, they're not letting me do it. So on the left hand, what I can quickly do right now, my orders aren't filling. I can quickly press Control Q. All my orders will cancel, and then Control Z and bail out. So this is how quickly I'll sometimes trade. Shift 1, Shift 1, Shift 1, Control Z. Shift 1, Shift 1, Shift 1, Control Z. Control X, Control X, Control Z. Control X, Control C, Control X, Control Z. Now, if I want to try selling the ask, maybe I put some on the ask there. That doesn't fill right away. Maybe I cancel it and place a new order on the ask. Maybe I cancel it and place a new order again. Maybe I cancel it, place a new order. Now I cancel them and I just give up and sell on the bid. So that's my general workflow. Now, you saw this button right here, right next to the semicolon, actually put out an order to sell 10 cents above the current price. I actually do have that as a profit target. It's only a quarter position, but I did put it out there as a profit target hotkey. Now, let's go into that for 1 second. So let's see. So this is sell quarter up 10 cents. So let's go back to this here. So NASDAQ limit, it's 10 cents above the current ask, quarter position, and that sets a little profit target. Now I could easily do that for, my half position or whatever I want, but I just kind of set it as a profit target. Every now and then I'll just, I don't know, I just said it there at one point. I think I might have done it as an example, but I've actually used it a couple times and I've been like, oh, that's kind of nice to have that. So you can set profit target hotkeys if you want, but if they don't fill, So right here, the order's at 1012. If it doesn't fill, then at a certain point, I want to cancel it and sell on the bid. So I didn't show you the cancel hotkey, so let me just show you that quickly. Under keyboard and then under custom commands, if you go to cancel order keys, this shows you all of the possible cancel order keys. There's a bunch of them for different situations. And, you know, Lightspeed caters to institutional, professional traders. They are available for retail traders like us, but they really cater to big traders. So they've got a lot of different things here. Anyway, so I just have Control Q, cancel all for stock. And at times, I have also done an order, cancel all, and put it on the escape button. But I don't know whether or not, I just pressed escape and it didn't work. Home and it's possible that doesn't work anymore, which is why it's not there. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's still available, so that's fine. All right, now in addition to the hotkeys to sell on the ask, I also, and I did this specifically for GameStop, I set up some hotkeys to shave the ask. So shaving the ask or offsetting inside the ask would be right here. So sell ask full offset. So I did a 10-cent offset below the ask. Now, in a case of GME, 10 cents below the ask is 56.03. You're actually below the bid. You're hitting the bid, essentially. But in a stock like GameStop that had very large spreads, certainly when it was up around $200-300 a share, a 10 cents between the spread made sense. Now, or 10 cents below the ask. A stock like Tesla, 10 cents below the ask definitely makes sense because the spreads are so big. So depending on the stocks you're trading, and if we get into a day where we're seeing a parabolic stock, one of those ones that's just going straight up, then that might be one of the times that we would say, well, actually, it would really help me right now. I'm having a hard time selling at the ask because the spread is so big. I think it would be helpful if I set up a hotkey to cut between the spread. So you can do, you could do there's different ways you can do this. They don't actually have midpoint as an option, which would be the exact midpoint between the spread. So that you can do the primary last and stuff like that, which, is sometimes between the spread, but sometimes not. So I just do ask minus 10. This is going to be automatically 10 cents below as a sell order. And I just leave it like that. So I have that for sell full, I have it for sell half, and I have it for sell quarter. Now the problem is, where do I script those darn hotkeys? And so what I decided to do to make it really easy, so I'll get back in ZVZZT there. I put the hotkey, so my hotkeys right now, as we know, are L, K, and semicolon for selling on the ask right here. So I put the 3 for selling with an offset right up here. I just put them right above it. So, so right now I want to sell half here, and I'm not getting filled. I can go like this to the O button, the one right above it. So I put this one, not filling, so I go P, and it goes. And because it's an offset 10 cents below, and in this case that's basically a marketable order, that's gonna go below. And Nick says they actually do have it if you call and ask them to enable a midpoint peg, she says. So that's, or he says, sorry Nick. So that's good to know. All right, so anyways, so I do have those hotkeys there with offsets, which I'll sometimes use. And, again, I can always go in on a specific day, just like a skier, adjust the wax for the conditions and say, you know what, the stock we're trading today, 10 cents is too much, but maybe 5 cents makes sense. Or maybe 10 cents isn't enough and I need to do 25 cents. So I can always change these on the fly, and then I can either choose to save my layout and then at any time go back and load that layout, or, I just don't save it. So you could save it here if you wanted to, or just not save it. Either way is fine. So this is the way that I'm using my hotkeys, primarily for selling, much more so than for buying. Now, you can set up hotkeys that prepare orders and then make changes in the order entry window. And that would be a hotkey where you are not actually sending it. So here we would change the confirmation, and I'll show you in a better example of that in Sterling. So let me close or hide Lightspeed and let's open Sterling. So the Sterling software, this is used by, as you know, a lot of different brokers. And the hotkeys are virtually the same in functionality. Shift 1, buying. Control Z, selling the whole thing. Shift 1, Control X sells half. Control C sells a quarter, half, the whole thing. So everything's the same there. Shift 1, selling on the ask. Same thing, right at the ask. Quarter, half, full position, hitting the bid. Orders to buy, we put them, down low, down here. Control Q cancels all the open orders. Same functionality, exactly the same. And that, for me, I would say is probably the most important thing when I'm using or considering different trading software, is that I'm using the hotkeys that I use are completely transferable. That in this case, the transition from Lightspeed to Sterling is seamless because I can use my exact same hotkeys. Yeah, I have to go and program them, but aside from that, it's exactly the same. So that makes the transition between those platforms very easy. So if we just go here, just so you know how to set them up, we'll go to Settings, we'll go to Hotkeys, and this is actually a much more intuitive layout than Lightspeed. This is Hotkey Shift 1. Right from here is where you actually can choose which key it goes to by actually pressing the key right there on your keyboard and saving it. To buy order 1,000 shares, it's the current symbol. The price is 10 cents above the ask. That's an offset to the high side. Current account, default destination. This is where you could choose your route, or you could leave it at default, which would leave it at whatever you've highlighted here, which is kind of nice. Time in force is default. That should be fine. It's possible for pre-market trades with some brokers, you would have to use a different time in force, but that should be fine. Currency, don't worry about that. Display quantity, this is where you make it a hidden order by showing 0. Price type, I don't put anything there. I guess that's for stop or for limit orders, so we don't put anything here. Stop limits. So nothing there. And then the mode is load and go. So if you recall, I had mentioned under quantity that I use this hotkey of 90% of my buying power. So this right here, if I press this, Shift 1, it loads 64,000 shares because that's the most shares that I can take based on my buying power. All right, so I was using that when I had the small account, and I was using this software because I knew I wanted to use basically 90% of my buying power on the trades I was taking. But I would just load it. That way I could see what's the most size I can take on this stock, and that would tell me whether or not I could use my leverage, because of course some stocks, they don't let you use your margin on, so, and leverage. So it would basically tell me, okay, based on this stock, what's the most shares I can take? And if it would only say like 250, then I'd probably be like, maybe it's not worth it. Whereas another stock that has leverage, I might be able to take 1,000. So it would help me decide whether or not I was able to trade the stock. But then also, it would let me know how aggressive I could be. So for me, though, for right now, I have it set at load and go, which is fire the order. So fire upon pressing the button. So that's Shift 1, 2, and 3. And you can, go all the way up to Shift 10, 0 if you want to go up to 10,000 shares with a hotkey. I just don't do that, but you could if you wanted to. Shift S is a stop. So this is a stop order for the full position. It's a stop order right here. And the price is actually set at, it's a percent. I don't know why I don't even remember doing that. But I'm going to go bid, and I'm going to do minus, I'm going to do the offset here, bid minus 15. But you could also do position average price minus 15. You could do whatever you want for a stop order. So you can customize these as you'd like. Control 1, 2, 3. These are some profit targets. I don't know. Someone must have asked for them and we put them in there. But so, again, you could set that profit target order to sell a quarter position 70 cents above your current price, or this looks like a percentage. So we'll do, whatever. You choose how you like. Selling on the bid, same functionality, sell, open position, current, bid minus 5. So I think that this is fairly straightforward. I don't think I need to go through each individual hotkey. Obviously, if you have specific questions, you can log into the support room, and our team is happy to help you. But this is essentially, it's very easy here, a little bit more intuitive than in Lightspeed. So you can walk through and create your hotkeys as you'd like. But I do encourage keeping it simple, because if you have a different hotkey on every single keyboard, every single key on your keyboard, you're going to start to get a little overwhelmed. All right, so I'm going to put that back down there. And now let's go into this beast, which is TD Ameritrade. All right, so TD Ameritrade, unfortunately, is not as intuitive. And also, they don't have the same level of functionality. So first of all, we know that our level 2 window is this ugly blue gradient, which makes it hard for us to see each of the tiers closest to the market because they fade, blend together. The tape is fine. That I have no problem with. So on this right here, basically, our options for buttons are by market. Well, that's a market order. And while that works for John, who's a member of the 100K club, and it works for others, that's fine. It doesn't work really well for me. I just can get concerned about the slippage. Now, buy the ask also doesn't work, because if I want to buy, 10,000 shares at the ask, well, what if there's only 200 for sale at the ask? My order won't fill. I'll fill 200 shares. The rest of it won't fill. So, it kind of forces the buy market button. And so what I was doing when I was trading with TD Ameritrade is I would just buy market, but with smaller blocks and scale in slowly. So, that's how I did it. So we have these buttons here. And just by the way, you can, both in Sterling and in Lightspeed, if you'd like to, you can set up a button bar. So we're going to go new, and we're going to go down to hot buttons. And then on this bar, I can go into settings, and I can add any of my hotkeys onto the button bar. So I can go add, add, and whatever. I mean, it just doesn't matter. You can add them all, and just like that. And then you can go in, you can even click it, and you can color it, so you can kind of make it look the way you want it. So you could do that. And so some people like to do that if instead of using the keys, they like to kind of point and click on the button. So that's fine. So this is for, the only thing is I'm just gonna change this to ZVZZT just to be safe, because I don't use these buttons. So let's just be safe on this. The only thing is I'm not totally sure on how it knows which. So whichever one is in yellow, it's gonna send it to that. So there we go. So there's buy 2,000, buy 1,000. So it's kind of cool. I mean, I could see how that could be kind of neat. It's not really that much different from this, except that it's just basically, well, anyway. So you could do that if you want there. You can set them all up in that way, and you can, design it how you like. You can do pretty much the same thing over here. You can enable the hot button bar, and then you can go to, let's see, hot button bar setup, and then same functionality. Now, for what's worth, Sterling designed both the Lightspeed trading platform and this trading platform right here. They built both of them. It's the same development team that built both of these platforms. So some of the functionality overlapping is logical from that perspective. So buy, and then sell full on the ask. So just put them like that. And then there you have those two right there. So buy, and actually it's not sending it immediately, maybe because we changed it from a load to, oh, what's going on here? I'll have to go check that. But in any case, this is how the buttons work if you want to. So if you like using the buttons, which is how a lot of people use TD Ameritrade, you could do that on Lightspeed and Sterling. But I prefer to use the actual keys. Okay, so then we have a button to join the ask. So that would be to put your order right at the ask price. But you can't hide your shares, and you can't offset 1 cent below the ask or 1 cent above the ask. Now you could go in here and you could say, oh, the current price is 83. I'm going to try to put my sell order. Let's see. So anything above it, anything below it. So you could put it down here, but again, it's just going to be it's just not exactly the same. So basically, this is our order entry window, so to speak. This is our level 2 window right here. And if we click auto send, orders will send immediately. Now, I might actually log out here. I want to log into my version that's the simulator, so I can just practice taking some trades. So hang on, let me log back in. Let's see. I clicked enter before I switched it. You know what? It's fine. I don't want to waste your time. So I'm back. I just logged back into the main platform. So this account, because I remember last 2 weeks ago when we were in the starter class, I took some trades, and now the account's flagged for being under the PDT level. Anyways, it's fine. I'm not actively trading in it. So we'll go here to hotkeys, and then we'll go to active trader. So under active trader, we'll have that enabled. And now these are the hotkeys we have. Buy market is shift 1. Sell market, control Z. Sell ask, control K. Cancel all, control Q. That's not bad. I mean, it's not great, but it's not bad. So let me go ahead and log out and log back in again. I'll do it the right way this time. So with those hotkeys, you can effectively get in and out and, move in and out of a position a little bit faster. It's not as good, I would say, as being able to create offsets. I would prefer to be able to have those offsets and to be able to say that I only want to sell a quarter of my position, not the full position. The only way to stipulate what the share size is actually through, through the, this right here. So let's go to charts. So hang on, we've got to customize this for a second. So we'll go to active trader, go to time and sales. We'll add the level 2. Trying to remember how to change this to the flexible grid. Why am I not remembering that? Anyways, it's not a big deal. So right here, I'm going to go and add a couple buttons. So we've got buy market, we've got sell market. We're going to add sell. We'll add the cancel. We've got the cancel. I'm going to remove that and make sure it's cancel all. I'm going to add sell ask. And I think that's good for now. Let's see. Okay. We're going to change it to auto send. We've actually got to move the sell ask up to here. I'm going to take away the reverse. That would be to flip from long to short. Flatten closes the position. All right. And we'll move cancel all up here. Okay. So in this case, we're looking at Etsy. So we'll buy market. And just like that, I'm in 100 shares at 228.96. Now I can press, let's go and just check to make sure the hotkeys are set up here in the simulator. So hotkeys, active trader is set up in the same way. So we can go and press Control K. And now you can see my limit order is right there, which is at 87. If we go over to the monitor, we can pop this out, and then we'll be able to see the open orders that I have. So this is usually what I would have down here. I'd have the open orders. That way I can see what's going on. I don't forget that I've got something open. I go back to here. So I can see right now, move this down a little bit, I guess. So my order just filled at 94. So again, I'm not a big fan of the ladder. So I'm just going to kind of hide that. We'll move the level 2 up. Now I'll get back in shift 1. So shift 1 is buying 100 shares because that's what I have selected here. If I click the 1,000, shift 1 will buy 1,000. Now I've got 1,100 shares. Join the ask is going to be 1,000 shares because that's what's selected right there. So you can see I'm on the ask right there at 28.82. That's my order that's showing right there. I could cancel it and I could click, let's see, I could click on if I click on the ladder, I could move the order up. So, the current price, so my average price is 28.63. It's saying the current price is 28, the last price is 28.34. So I could put an order here to sell at, 28.63 or 28.70. Just put the order up there, for instance. So now if it curls back up, that order will get picked up. But, it's just not as, I could do another one. I could cancel this one and then do this order here and then this order here, and you could kind of spread them out. So, that point and click is kind of nice, I guess. Control Q cancels the orders. But I think as you saw in one of the examples, now I'm going to do Control Z. It's going to sell 300. But actually, it looks like it sold all of them. So let's just look at the order on that. It sold all, so why did it sell all 1,100? So let me just try to remind myself. Control Z, how do we have that set up? Application settings, hotkey. I might have set it up to flatten. Control Z is flat position. So flat position closes the whole thing. So that's how I had that set up. And then that's to bail. And then control X is, I guess, sell at market. But that's going to be whatever I have entered in here. So, you know, again, this is why some of you might be like, wow, this is like, I can't believe so many people use TD Ameritrade. But, you know, I guess you get used to it, and that's fine. If you're used to it and it works for you, you know, that's fine. You get used to what you get used to. To me, it seems a little tricky. E-Trade, for instance, is a lot more. E-Trade has a similar order entry window, a similar looking level 2 window. So E-Trade, a similar looking open positions and active orders window. It's much more similar over at E-Trade. The only problem that I've had there is that the order routing was actually worse than TD Ameritrade. And I did side-by-side testing, and the order entry at TD was worse. But, at E-Trade was worse. So I used TD instead. But yeah, again, I would say it's whatever's a good fit for you. If TD is a good fit, can you trade these stocks? Absolutely. Do you want to use TD as your charts? Maybe. And, you know, you can set it up. You can get the active grid going and, you know, kind of set this up in a different way, however you'd like, or the flexible grid. Can't remember why it's, oh, it's right here, flexible grid. So anyways, you choose what you want for each one of these little areas, and you can do it. It's fine. But we'll get into platform demos a little bit later in the course where I'll do like a full demo of this. But just for the sake of hotkeys, the functionality is limited, and what they could do to make the functionality better would be to, well, add the ability to do offsets and different position sizes based on, you know, quarter, half, full. That would be a big game changer for me. But also the fact that the hotkeys have sometimes not been consistently working for me has been a problem. So yeah, but again, you know, it's not a bad platform. You can certainly customize it to get it to work for you. It just takes a little bit of it's just a little adjustment period. All right, so yeah, we'll go ahead and log off there. All right, so with that, we have gone through hotkeys. I don't have anything else to share on this, so we're going to continue into the next section here, which is Chapter 6, Part 5. All right, so we're going to continue on here with Chapter 6, Part 5, and now we're going to get into some more live trading examples. So these are going to be some level 2 tape reading examples. Some of them will include trades, and so I'll certainly be using my hotkeys, and this is, again, kind of layering in and combining everything we've talked about so far, except for the strategy, which is going to be coming in the following chapters. The good news, though, is during the strategy classes, because there'll be a lot of live trading examples, you'll now have a better understanding of some of the things that I'm going to talk about, seeing on the level 2 that give me the conviction to press that buy button, or that make me nervous and make me want to press that sell button. So let's see. Let me. Okay, so that's that. I'm gonna just minimize this here. All right. So. Okay. Well, that's not really how I was gonna do that. I'm gonna put it right here, and I'm gonna go presenter view like that, and then I'll have it on a second window here. Okay. So live trade, 600,000 share seller blocking the breakout. All right, let's look at this. So I don't even remember this one. So this will be, but okay. Well, this is we had an example on SRNE here. So this is an example also of where NASDAQ total view would give you a little bit more insight. So right there, it looks like, whoa, we're looking good. You know, well, oh, this is right at the bell. Okay, that's why I was like, why are we seeing that kind of weird price action? So oftentimes, let me just say, in case we haven't mentioned it yet, and I'm sure we'll touch on it at other points, but the moment the bell rings, there's a little imbalance that occurs. And so the bell's going to ring right here, nothing, and then all of a sudden, see how it's kind of this, like, it's just a funny sort of little hesitation there for a second. And that happens. Basically, at the bell, you have all the traders out there that have orders to execute as like day orders. So if you have an order, for instance, you know, a profit target order to sell, you know, let's say I'm holding CHCI, whatever, 1,000 shares. So let's say I'm holding this and, I go to sleep, but I leave an order that's a good till canceled order, which we actually isn't in the sim here, but let's just say we leave a good till canceled order to sell it at, $11. Well, those types of orders do not execute pre-market. So pre-market, we will see stocks behave a little bit differently. All of those orders that are out there, the stock can trade above and below them without those orders executing. And so if you think of the market, pre-market, and this kind of speaks to why sometimes we will see good opportunities pre-market. Pre-market a stock, let's just say the price is, I don't know the best way to kind of draw this, but let's say the price is $10 and here's 11 and here's 12 and here's 9 and here's 8. Well, pre-market, this is pre-market here. And then this is regular trading hours here. So during regular trading hours, all of these orders that people have, as soon as the bell rings, they're out, right? So you've got all these orders out there. So as soon as the bell rings, as it starts to squeeze up or it starts to drop, it's going to drop down to the support of those buy orders or those stop orders. It's going to come up to the resistance of those sell orders or the buy stop orders if it's a trigger to cover a short position, whatever it is. And pre-market, you don't have any of those. So all you have pre-market essentially are people that are actually just saying, I want to buy it here, and I'm putting a sell order here for a target, and it's a pre-market order. So pre-market, we can see a lot more volatility, and then once the bell rings, we start to see a lot more resistance fill in. A lot of ECNs don't actually even run pre-market, so you have less liquidity pre-market, you have typically less volume pre-market. However, when you have a stock that is starting to make a big move pre-market, and there's any number of examples where we've seen that recently. When that happens, the moves can be very, very quick because there isn't a lot of necessarily resistance. I mean, yes, you have resistance in the form of what may be present on the daily chart. CHCI, for instance, this morning, this thing went from $8 to $14. There were no sell orders. You know what I mean? So you had buyers up early who saw the opportunity and rode that momentum. So we can see some big moves pre-market, but usually right when the bell rings, any of those orders that were out there, so someone on CHCI maybe bought it yesterday and then put an order to sell it at $10. The bell rings and boom, that order triggers as soon as the bell rings. So that's what starts to happen at the open. So in the first few seconds, it can always be risky to be holding from pre-market into the open because you don't know if there's a market order that's going to execute for like a 50,000 share sell order as soon as the bell rings. All right, so let's go back here. All right, so in this case here, I actually bought and pressed the buy button for the break of 10 before I realized that there was that sell order. So this is an example where had I been using NASDAQ Total View and I had seen that order, it probably would have saved me this loss. So initially the bell rings, I'm trying to buy the dip right here. I'm seeing the green orders and I'm like, yep, that looks good. I'm buying the dip here for the breakthrough 10. Whoa, is that a 600,000 share seller right there? Yes, it is. So I try to cancel my orders, but they fill 2,900 shares anyways. And then I am going to basically immediately take the loss, as I recall. So, that in that case would have been prevented. I mean, that turns into a $700 loss. I should have just cut it. Honestly, I should have just cut it immediately. And you see big bids, but it's just selling. That's a $1,000 loss. That by itself makes me question not using makes me question adding back NASDAQ Total View. But the last time I did it, I found that it was too much data and I was overwhelmed. So anyways, then I've averaged down in the position, which is trying to salvage a loser. So we'll see if it comes back up. So we're seeing as it comes back up, we've got the 50,000 share sell order there. It's getting bought. And in this case, it just blows through it in kind of one market order and it goes. Now we're back up to 90. Now I'm in at 78. Here's 95, 96, 97, 740,000 shares on the ask. Can it break? That's a wall. And I sell. I sell it. I don't know what I got filled at, but I sold it. It's weird that my sell order's not showing up there. Oh, it's down here. It's usually, so in Lightspeed, maybe I hadn't done that at this point, but I color my orders based on buy or sell. So So I color them like this. A sell order is red. I must have at that time not had made that change. Just makes it easier to differentiate. So clearly that big sell order is a problem. Now, if we saw it go 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then that's only 100,000. Then when you see it go 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, again. So seeing that on the level 2, it definitely is going to give you a bit of an advantage there. Now, didn't I already say presenter mode? Why am I doing this twice? All right, sellers getting bought up. Okay, so let's look at this one. All right, so here's another one. Which stock are we watching? So it looks like, I'm gonna move my video here. It looks like we're focusing on this one, right down here, the one with the yellow kind of band around it. That's the stock that's in focus. And that's important because that's the level 2 window that hotkeys are activated on. So hotkeys are not activated on any of these, and that's how you understand, you know, where your hotkeys are focusing. This already, what do you think about this when you look at this? Does this not look like a thicker level 2? You can tell just the way it's trading. It's like, whoa, there's some stacks of buyers and sellers. 26 million shares, 27 million shares. I mean, these are millions of shares of volume. So in this case, it's just kind of, the volume is just pouring into it. The float on this stock is 90 million shares, and you can see that it definitely looks that way. So in this case, I'm buying for the break of the $0.50 and see as it's curling, coming down there. So let's watch it again. Seeing green, I'm getting into anticipate it. 30,000, 20, 18, and look at that pop. The pop through the $0.50. Now I added on this for the break. I got kind of a bad fill, it looks like. No, what did I do? Let me back this up. Now I can't remember. So 10,000 shares, there we go. And I'm taking it off the table. Hotkey. In that case, it looks like at 53, I sold on the bid. So I just took it right out. Remember, sometimes we get the false breakout. And this is a stock that had already tapped 250 once, pulled back. It hit that level where there was a big seller. It pulled back, and then it curls back up. And on the second attempt, I get in. But it could have the risk of being a double top. So I take the quick profit on it. Now it's 56, 57. So now the question is, if it holds the $0.50, I could consider getting back in. We'll talk about, again, this is more a study of level 2 and tape reading right now than strategy. But we can see these bursts of green and red going through. I think one of the other reasons that I like having the limited view is that the limited view, usually I can see where the halt levels are pretty easily. So if I had, so on this stock, well, so mark right here, halt levels at 475. But if I had NASDAQ total view, I'd have to like really open it up because it would show every order up to 475. So I think sometimes that might be part of the reason that I feel that it's a little bit easier to have a limited view, 5260, because I can immediately see the halt levels. And the halt levels are important for me in terms of visualizing and seeing, when stocks will get halted, how soon the halt levels are. So I was having a problem with my presentation drawing tool, but I'll put it back on here and we'll see if we can get it to cooperate a little bit better. So now I've got a bigger mouse. All right, so, and I think you're right that in this instance of looking at these examples is probably a good idea. All right, so we'll back this up again. So we're gonna look for that break right here. 48, 49, 50, there we go, snap. Take the profit on the snap. Now, if it pulls back and holds 50, I can add back at 57, 58 for the move higher. This LULD level, this is only available really on very few brokers. It's not available on most. I don't think it's on E-Trade. I don't think it's on TD Ameritrade. Okay, so let's back that one up. Why is every time I back it up, it's doing that? I don't understand. All right, you know what? That's fine. I'm just going to put this down here. And let's go to this new one. All right, so here we've got a 53,000 share seller on S-Fun. So S-Fun is this top window up here. I can already tell you it's a thickly traded stock. I look at it, the first thing, just again, stack of sellers. Huge stack of sellers. Pretty good stack of buyers, tight spread, easy to borrow. Usually easy to borrow stocks at light speed are ones that have higher floats. Usually they don't have easy to borrow on lower float stocks. S-Fund, the float on this, let me see. You know what? It says right now 5.13 million shares, but it doesn't look that way. And so this is where the gut check would say, you know what? While it may be saying that, this doesn't look like it. So maybe that's for algorithmic traders. I don't know. They're trading it more actively. For whatever reason, it just doesn't look quite right. And it's not even moving all that much right now. But all right, so we're going to see a bigger seller on it. And there it is right there on NYSE, 53,000 shares. So that's that bigger seller right there, right underneath the $0.50. And a big stack, this is not going anywhere. Not only is it clearly not moving all that quickly, first 5-minute candle made a new high. It's technically a 1-minute micro pullback under the $0.50, which usually we would sort of like, but in this scenario, it's not happening. Next slide is 26,000 share seller on, 26,000 share seller on Carve. So let's look at this one. This is an older video. So right there, you can see the 25,000 share seller. So this one, we can see for sure, and this is definitely a couple years old. I don't know what the date is. This is 2018, 5/28/2018. So this is an older video. You can see in the background this other software I have. This is DAS Trader, which we talked about a little bit at one point, I think in the starter class. It's software that I used years ago with a different broker, and then when I switched to Lightspeed, I started using the Lightspeed software. So some brokers have specific software that they'll use, or some that they won't use. But anyways, that DAS Trader, it's so similar to Sterling. It's another one that you could just kind of take it or leave it. They're both so similar. So here we've got this seller up here, and look at look at the spreads on this. It's low volume, but 1088 by 1095. So yeah, I just wanted to show you that seller on that one. All right, so let's get the next one. So we've got a big seller here on this one. Let's look at that. So let's see. We're on 80 OM, and there we go at 80. 32,000 shares, but seeing some buy orders going through. $30, $31. So, I'm looking just at that one big seller. The other ones, I mean, there are other ones there, but I'm just not really looking that closely at it. So see, it looks like it's gone, but it's still there, right there, NASDAQ. Oh, and look at that. Now we've got someone on EdgeX also. So now we've got EdgeX and NASDAQ, 18 plus 48. So we've got over 60,000 shares on the ask. Now it's up 60%, 16 million share float, but it does feel a little bit more thickly traded. The float on this one is 56 million shares. So, it's a little on the higher side. Not outrageous. It's already moved from $1.50 up to $1.90, but you can see it's struggling a little bit. So is it going to be able to break through that level? EdgeX. So when EdgeX is at the top of the book, we see it at the top, and then what it had on that second row down is gone. So I've learned to recognize that it's not actually gone, it's just not at the top of the book, and that it's still there. But I can see how that could be a little confusing about why it all of a sudden now looks like, oh, there's nothing at 80. Let's just get in here at 78. What are you talking about? Oh, it's there. Well, what do you mean? I don't see it. I don't know. I might, maybe at some point this year, I'll try using NASDAQ Total View again and see if I like it more. But again, like I said, the last time I used it, I just felt overwhelmed by how many numbers I was seeing. And I found that it was causing me to hesitate a lot. So here we've got 62,000 on the ask on EdgeX. And it's not able to break that level. People give up. So that seller is blocking the way. Now, if you were just looking at your chart, of course, you wouldn't have seen that on the chart. Okay, so we've got a big seller on AVGR, which is the stock right here. So we're at 97 on the ask. Bit of a stack of sellers here. 98, and here we go, 99, and you can see right there on NASDAQ at $2, 45,000 shares. So we'll back it up, we'll see it again. It starts to come up to that level, but you know what? Look at the chart. This has already done a false break over 2 a couple times. So it's tried, and it hasn't been able to hold that level. So, you know, this one, yeah, it's tricky. So this is the one we're looking at here, and it can't get back over that level. So yeah, Chet, what I have is the limited view. NASDAQ total view, I'm not even sure if I have that in, I can open TD Ameritrade and just see. I don't remember what TD Ameritrade, what I subscribe to over there. Let's see. I'll check, but yeah, this is the view that you guys are seeing in Lightspeed and in Sterling. That is the more limited view. I mean, it's not that you don't see anything. You clearly do, but it's just limited. So let's see. No, so that's limited as well, which is fine. I mean, generally speaking, it's fine. It's generally what most people are looking at. And I usually like to look at what most people are looking at. So I think, Kenny, you're right. The challenge is if I present myself with more data, that's more data that I have to interpret in the same period of time. So can I continue to make fast decisions when I have that much more data in front of me? And I had generally just sort of, I guess, gone with being okay with a little bit less. Okay, so, excuse me. So that was AVGR. Now I'm going to show you that distinctive halting appearance, which you may already be familiar with. Okay, so on this one, all of a sudden, you can tell for sure that this stock is moving quickly, right? So it's up 128%, 2 million shares of volume. CHCI, this is so funny. This morning, I was re-recording the first 3 chapters because the recordings from yesterday didn't come out well, and I had a great example on CHCI that was just perfectly timed at 8 a.m. with the market, the quotes, the institutional quotes that go through at 8 a.m. And so here we have again another example of CCHI. It's a former Momo stock, so you know some of these will see come up again and again. Carve from 2018, we traded that one in 2020, and I think I made over $100,000 on it. We had one day where pre-market, it just was crazy right here. Now, it ended up selling off, but it hit a high of $22. So anyways, this one here is squeezing up. Now, the float on CHCI, I believe, is about 2 million shares. So, you know, the float can change through the process of share buyback, secondary offerings, and reverse splits, traditional splits. But so we've got CHCI here, 52 by 53, and moving up quickly. Halt level, LULD is at 70, and we're pinning right up to the halt level. Look at this distinctive pinning action. So right now, I'm putting out orders to buy into the halt. Now, I could get filled if someone sells me shares. If someone sells me shares, I could get filled at 470, but only if someone sells to me. So I try to add into the halt. That pop-up is because I'm overriding my defined limits, I think, which was on position size. So let's back this up again for 1 second. So initially, when we see it's 70 right here, if I saw that, I would be like, ooh, this has a good chance of doing a false halt. You know, yes, it's up quite a bit, but it could do a false halt just because you can tell that it's, you know, you can tell that it's clearly just one buyer right there. So you've got 470. Now it's two buyers. Now you've got a stack of buyers, and this looks like we are going to go ahead and get halted. So 470. So halting at 470. And that's that distinctive halting appearance. Remember, it has to stay like that for 15 seconds before officially it's halted, and now we're seeing 493. So that's telling us right away that it's going to gap higher. It's going to open higher. Let's see. You'll see a lot of examples of that. I'll give you a couple others here. But we'll see it again and again and again. Okay, so MDGS, ripping up here, moving quickly. I'm in at 97. Looks like I'm taking a little off the table, and then I'm probably going to add back for the rip up to 8. Or LULD level is right here at 56. So now I'm actually holding into the halt, and now this is halted. So I'm holding 1,200 shares into the halt. This is a like right at the open type of trade. So that's that distinctive halting appearance you can see there. Let's see if we get, I don't remember if we get a resumption on this or, yeah, so that was the halt. So now we're waiting for resumption. So it halted, the time was 30:29, 30:33, resumption should be right here about now if it's a 5-10 minute long halt. There's resumption at 8. And look at that, up to 834, 850. If it breaks 850, 875, and then 9. Look at that, unbelievable. Now it's a pullback, a little dip. Dips can be buying opportunities, but we'll see what happens in this case. Orders ready to buy, 56 is the order entry. Will we see another halt? I'm going to want to see green on the tape to give me the conviction to buy. There's the green. I'm adding right there. There's the squeeze up to 72, 77. In and out, quick trade. Not a great trade there. Didn't break over $9, which is what we would have wanted to see. New orders at 93. There we go, 75, 78, 80, nice, $9, 932, very nice. That's good. There's 9. But it doesn't look like we're getting another halt, so we were really looking at the halting. I was looking for the halting pattern. Okay, so that's good. All right, so that's that one. I've got another one right here. Okay. So this one is going into a halt right here. I'm trying to add. So that's this one right here. And you can see how it's getting pinned. That distinctive look as it's going into a halt. So that's that look of a stock going right into the halt level. Okay. And then this is what's called a false halt. So false halts are always a little tricky. It's when a stock looks like it's about to halt and then, ooh, false breakout, and it flushes. We don't like to see false halts. So let's see, where do we get the false halt on this one? So I'm in at 307. There's 318, 324, moving quickly. This is good to see. There we go. Halt level is 338. It's LULD right there. So here is it's pinning. Looks like it's going to halt at 38, right? And I put the order to add into the halt in case I get filled. I get filled and all of a sudden it dips down. So what happened right here is the halt level moved up. The new halt level is 362. So what we know is that the halt price is the average price over the last 5 minutes, and that is, of course, a rolling 5-minute period, so it's constantly changing. So in this case, that level moved up on our level 2. The stock immediately kind of dipped down as traders panicked, but sometimes we'll see that it surges right up to that next level, right? And if it does that, then we're sort of chasing the halt levels higher. So in this case, it dips down. It's a false halt. Now I'm red on the position and unwinding it, taking a little bit off the table, but it ends up just being a loser. Okay, so we're going to get into more live trading examples as we go through the classes, but I wanted to just kind of at least get a couple there for you to see the action between the level 2 and the time and sales and everything else. All right, so I believe that puts us here at, oh, you know what? We have one more quick, actually, well, I think we don't need to cover that. So we're good. All right, so with that, we are at the end of chapter 6. Good job.